Okay, and we're looking good here. So this is the first video that I just want to talk directly to you, the internet world, about. And it's a bunch of things there's all kinds of things I would love to talk about, but I ultimately realize I don't want to waste your time. And I'm just like, what do I really have things to say about that I feel like are valid? And what do I have to say that somebody maybe has or hasn't said, or I can just add on to, or at least throw my hat in the discussion. Which, as a side note, I didn't realize this, but looking at the camera and where things are placed, I have a uh, old school World War I British trench helmet on top of my bookshelf that is like perfectly centered on the top of my head. So it kind of looks like, depending on how I'm sitting, I'm wearing a tiny hat. Anyway, I'm trying not to be too silly, but what's the point of entertainment? Is it silliness? I should get over that. Anyway, to start off my YouTube line of fame, today's episode is brought to you by Aviation, American Gin, bottled and distilled in America. And apparently, if you do get this stuff, the proceeds go to veterans and other charities that people in and out of the Air Force would like to donate to. I'm not trying to get money out of these people because, like, right now I have like 11 subscribers, so that means that very few people are going to even pay attention to this. Anyway, not to get too much into the hype, let's just get to what I want to talk about. Right now, 1 week from today, Star Wars Episode 9 is going to be coming out. And I don't give a crap. I don't. And I hate to say things like that because it makes me feel like I'm punching my inner child in the gut. Like, I grew up with Star Wars. I grew up with entertainment in general. I was one of those, like, I don't want to say shut-in, but I was one of those kids that, like, I appreciated cartoons. I appreciated TV shows. I appreciated movies. I wasn't a big sports guy, and I didn't go outside very often unless I really wanted to. Excuse the burp. Gin time. Hold on. But for me, it was like I was in the world of fiction and entertainment and video games and I don't know, like G.I. Joes and Micro Machines and StarCraft and Jurassic Park. And I'm a guy. Me and my entire family, we appreciate good movies and TV shows. Like, that part of the reason I got into acting years ago was because I said, you know what, I don't know if I'm feeling serious academia. I was studying philosophy and history at the time, and in hindsight, I should have majored in history, but I only minored in it. Whatever, it is what it is. But I jumped into acting partly because of that. And I grew up with Star Wars. Star Wars was cool. It was the height of imagination, height of adventure, height of storytelling. It was fun. It was raw imagination, but it still had a good point. And like, even if you're somebody that legit feels like the Force is just a metaphor for, like, progressive material values or immaterial values like spirituality or science or a blend of both. Most human beings blend these kinds of things of, like, religion and science. It's like it's not stark black and white like it used to be anymore. But the point of Star Wars, like the original 4, 5, and 6, I was a kid. I was a little kid when 4, 5, and 6 still reigned supreme. Like, no jokes. 4, 5, and 6 was still like the king of the crop. And when I was probably about 10, roughly, when they announced, hey, we're going to be making Star Wars Episode 1, and we're starting a new trilogy, and we're going back to the past, and we're doing what happened and what led all the way up to Darth Vader and how, Luke Skywalker's parents and all this other kind of, anyway. Episode 1 came out, and everybody was super excited. People were lining up around the block. People were waiting and camping around their movie theaters because they got tickets or they wanted to get in line to get tickets. And this is before you could pre-order tickets, which is actually kind of standard now, or assigned seating either. So you just kind of had to get your ticket, go and get your ticket, hope you got the ticket, and hope you sat down and people weren't trying to take your seat or be a douchebag about it. Anyway, Episode 1 came out and totally made everybody who appreciated the previous trilogy go, are you kidding me, dude? Are you kidding me? But here's the thing. Kids enjoyed Episode 1. The pod racing was fun. But the action moments were okay, although one of my good friends was recently saying that the lightsaber duel between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul was probably the best he had ever seen, in his opinion. It was a good balance of flashiness and suspense and things like that. And I kind of agree with him to some extent. I have other lightsaber fights that I enjoy with Star Wars, but like Episode 1 came out, and it made everybody. And of course, I'm not saying anything new. I'm not saying anything original here, but I just need to give a bit of a pretext of why I'm saddened to say this. But like, I was a kid, 4, 5, and 6 reigned supreme. Episode 1 came out, and it's like, well, 1 was kind of fun, but it was silly. And even as a kid who was like an old man trapped in a child's body, that was like, most things suck. You know, I'm a little curmudgeon and stuff like that. I was saddened, and like Jar Jar didn't make me laugh. Jar Jar was insulting, and most people were insulted by Jar Jar, and he was clearly meant for little kids, not even grown-up kids, little kids, which made people go, you know, Star Wars was, I would argue, age neutral. I'm not saying it was meant for kids or older people, or it was family friendly, technically speaking, even though it did have some few darker moments in there. Like 4 had some, 4 was adventurous. It had some sad moments, like, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru were like killed, and Luke Skywalker couldn't do anything about it. Episode 5 ends with kind of a downer, where like a Han Solo had been frozen in carbonite and sent off to the Hutts. It's supposed to be a metaphor for them killing off this character that people like, and it was cool. Luke found out that his dad was like space Nazi man. They got his hand cut off by this guy who was also his dad too. And then it looked like the rebellion took a hit, and it totally led into like, well, there's going to be a new movie. There's going to be a movie after this that wraps in like the good guys have to win. And Episode 6 had some dark moments where like, the lightsaber duel where like Luke was starting to lose himself, and then he was like, I'm not going to kill my dad. You lost, Emperor, and he didn't think like, oh, maybe the bad guys were going to win. Now, of course, they're not going to win, but still. And of course, like the dark moments were balanced out by Ewoks in 6. Anyway. But Episode 1 came out, the precursor to this trilogy. It made all of the adults and older folks, especially diehard sci-fi fans, go, are you kidding me? This is clearly little kid schlock. And of course, some families and little kids enjoyed it, so that's why they said the first one was good. Even though he's not the best guy to name drop right now, because he's kind of gone downhill with his internet fame, but JonTron was that guy who he showed up to Angry Video Game Nerd with James Rolfe and Mike Matei, and even he was like, 2 and 3 were dumb. There were terrible lines. 1 was at least fun. It had a cool pod race scene. It was epic. And Jar Jar was silly, but he was fun, and that was the last you were ever going to get of any kind of blend. That was the last you were going to get of a nice blend of silly and fun. And I see what he means, but it's just the majority of the fan base went, "What are you doing, George Lucas?" And of course, it wouldn't be until years later where I had older folks explain to me, "Well, George Lucas was wrangled by better people when he was doing the original trilogy. Even after he got kicked out of the Directors Guild, he still was wrangled by better people." Having free and total reign, given that he had this reputation of being like an untouchable god in the sci-fi community and the movie community, and of course Star Wars grossed $1 billion and inspired a lot of people to get up off their rear ends and do something fucking right. So the point I'm trying to make is, one, made people go, are you kidding me? This is clearly for kids. And 2 was like, okay, it's a little bit more serious, but there's still some silly moments with like gags between R2 being awesome and C-3PO being just a hijinks monster, and an accidental, reluctant hijinks monster. And some of the lightsaber fights were pretty cool. Like, I honestly felt like when they first really dueled Count Dooku, and he had his lightsaber out in like this rapier grip and like this saber grip and stuff like that. And of course his lightsaber like ended downward in sort of like a pole war or like a tall war shape or like a saber shape, which I thought was cool. I thought that Count Dooku was ballin', and Christopher Lee is just a great villain. And of course when they got him for Lord of the Rings, it's like, oh man, he does a great job as Saruman. Anyway, but that's, Lord of the Rings is a totally separate discussion when you look at the Hobbit movies and stuff like that. But to get back on track, Star Wars, I started out as a kid with that golden shadow of the original trilogy was great. And then 1, 2, and 3 came out, and me and my friends grew up going, well, despite the good moments, they're lame and they're dumb. And there's lines like, Anakin, you're breaking my heart. And they were in 3. And then 2 was like, you're softer than sand. And 1 was just Jar Jar silliness. And it's like, really? This is what you're giving us? Oh, it is what it is. So there was this break after Episode 3 came out, where people were like, George Lucas is the devil. He ruined his own franchise. He's probably making a bunch of money, but, he screwed over something that we all love. So I grew up I was in that, like, growing phase transitioning from like a child to a teen to a young adult to an adult, where Star Wars was still this, like, the original franchise was great and the trilogy was garbage, the new trilogy was garbage, and people were hoping desperately that episode 7 would come out and 8 would come out and 9 would come out and there would be a good new trilogy and George Lucas would go back to his golden, golden gloves, champ years with the original. But of course it didn't happen, and he made like that Tuskegee Airmen movie that he was trying to pass off as like, oh, look how progressive we are and no one's going to make this movie in Hollywood. And then of course it came out and people were like, nobody saw it and it was garbage. And it's like, okay, whatever, sorry to be scratching my nose. I'm a neurotic son of a bitch. Gin time. Anyway, so George Lucas is like clearly not doing anything with this trilogy, with this beloved franchise that he wants to be doing something with. But it's clear, I think he even fell into that trap of like, I don't think I can do it. And then lo and behold, there's this random announcement, comes out of nowhere, a few years ago, where they were like, Disney has bought Star Wars. And everybody was like, oh my God. And of course, like, the mouse has enough money to be able to do stuff like that, especially after the success of, like the Marvel movies because they bought Marvel. And people were like, well, what does that really mean? Who gives a crap? But then they were like, well, let's take a risk on these movies. And Kevin Feige and all those people, the Marvel success made Disney go, okay, we can finally get back in the limelight and not have to worry about trying to capture our magic with 2D animated films and these live action flops and hits that were like I love National Treasure, but people sort of look at it like a joke. And, and then of course they tried to make they made a sequel, and it's like, just as an example, Disney was trying to recapture stuff. What is it? John Carter movie came out, and people were like, what is this? It's garbage. But they screwed up. But apparently there was executive competition. That's why that movie fell apart. Anyway. But so Disney, with all their resources, says we're buying Star Wars from George Lucas and we will make movies and we do things for them. And then people are, of course, everybody's excited because they're like, okay, well, we're at least going to get a new trilogy. George Lucas, we're not going to have to wait till George Lucas becomes the crypt keeper, in order to get these movies out. God, my nose is itchy. I'm sorry. Editing. Yeah, right. I'm not editing crap. We're doing this raw and real, son. Here we go. So Disney buys Star Wars and they say, okay, well, we have plans. We're going to do a new trilogy, which is what everybody's been wanting. Yay. We're going to throw a bunch of money at it and really good people. Yay. And then they make the first mistake of saying, well, we're not going to get people like J.J. Abrams, and even J.J. Abrams, who was starting to get, he was known, but again, criticized because of how he handled the Star Trek reboots. And he even made an announcement. Don't worry, guys. I'm not going to have anything to do with Star Wars. Disney hasn't approached me, and I don't think they will. Literally a month later, Disney and JJ were like, so we've been having talks, and we've decided we're going to go with JJ to handle the new Star Wars trilogy. And I'm sitting there going like, are you kidding me? And then of course I found out about his mystery box approach. And the mystery box approach is silly. It's garbage. I'm going to use his own metaphor against him. He's like, the whole thing is about what is the box and getting to the box, and it's like, here, no, screw you. When you see a present, you want to get to the present, open it, pull out what's inside, and play around with it and have fun. It's like a Christmas toy, like on Christmas. Yes, the tension of getting to the box Christmas morning, sure, but that's not the story. The story is, you get to the box and open it. Act 2 should be you pick out what's inside and play around with it. And then Act 3 is you figure out what it means and what does it mean to you and how you're going to do it. And oh no, maybe the thing in the box broke or something happened to it. And then you got to figure out what to do with it. That's more interesting than this mystery box approach garbage. And sadly, he's poisoned the minds of screenwriters and producers and other filmmakers into thinking that this mystery box approach is actually worth it, and it's not. But apparently he started doing that with Star Wars. And so now this is where I will get 50-50 subjective criticism and objective criticism. And by that I mean what I thought was garbage and what is legitimately problematic from a structural standpoint. Anyway, so and I'll try to blend them. I'll try not to blend them and point out what is personally bothersome, and what's actually problematic. But sometimes these lines blur, so I'll say what I need to say and shit. So episode 7 comes out, and I was kind of excited to see what this was going to be, but then, opening it up with, Max von Sydow is just random old mysterious guy who speaks in metaphor, and then you get Poe Dameron first off, the name Poe Dameron, and I forget the actor's name who plays him. I think it's Isaac, Isaac something, Jason, whatever. The point is, he like, the bad guys stomping towards him, Kylo Ren stomping towards him, and they capture him, and then Poe Dameron goes, okay, so do you talk or do I talk? How do you want to do this? Who should talk first? And I'm like, oh no, they're gonna try and pull out really bad sitcom humor. Okay, fine, maybe I'm just being too douchebaggy. Let's keep going. And then like they introduce like Rey and Finn, and I think my biggest problem with the new trilogy is casting. I don't like any of the actors and actresses that they've gotten. I think that the majority of them are limited, and they were got mainly because they were kind of good looking, but they don't really have any legit serious acting chops on any level. The guy who plays Finn, and I'm not gonna look up the actor's name. The guy who plays Finn, it literally looks like he just showed up on set, and they were like, okay, you're a stormtrooper and you've been trained as a soldier, but you're having second thoughts, and you ultimately realize you don't want to shoot innocent people, so go. And it's like, his body language was cheap. The guy playing him, it literally looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. Apparently, though, he did change his accent. Great on him. Great, yay. But everything else was like, this is just cheap, and it was lame, and I didn't buy any of it. And it was just frantic, and it was hectic. And he was like, I got to get out of here. And he's like, I guess I'll join the rebellion, but I don't really want to be a part of this. And then you have Rey, and the actress, who's the actress who plays Rey? Is it Daisy Ridley? Is it Daisy Ridley? I think it's Daisy Ridley. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. So they get her, and I'm sorry. It's not that she's a bad actress, but her range is limited. She's like Kevin Costner. Her range is limited. She only has two expressions. Expression one is like far-sighted, but still kind of irritated and pissed off on some weird level. It's like latent heat. Her second expression is like birthing pain, like grunting and like cringing in pain. And I saw her in episode 7 thinking like, well, this is the first movie. It didn't really change in episode 8, and I'll get to that. And then, of course, the guy who plays Poe Dameron's not a bad actor. I think he's pretty good. The problem is that Poe Dameron is like, okay, he's trying to be like a space rogue, but it's like, you're not going to be Han Solo. And Finn and Rey are characters like, okay, maybe Rey is a Force user, or and you find out she is a Force user. Maybe Finn's going to be a Force user. No, he's just a black stormtrooper. But he obviously has potentially, like potential Force, like Force potential, I guess is the word. I don't know. I guess I wish I was more of a Star Wars expert than I thought I used to. I used to be more into this stuff, and then now I'm like, I don't care. And then let's talk about Kylo Ren. He's just an angry dude who apparently is trying to not be as cool as his dad, but wants to be as bad as like Darth Vader, who, oh jeez. And then you find out like, okay, oh, and by the way, I should say spoilers just in case people haven't seen this stuff. There's going to be spoilers in the Star Wars discussion. Sorry. You find out Kylo Ren is actually Han Solo's dad, which would mean that and he's Leia's mom. And you find out which means that Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker / are his grandfather. And he's trying to recapture his grandfather's legacy, and you're like, why? But then of course you're like, okay, well obviously he's trying to be intentionally evil, and then you're like, okay, where's this going to go? I'll get to episode 8 and all this other stuff in a second. But episode 7, there's only one moment that I enjoyed, and it made me kind of tear up. I'll be straightforward, is when Rey and Finn are getting captured by the bad guys, but then like that squadron of X-Wings are, coming in, and you realize like, oh, the good guys are here, and like, I'm not going to lie, when I see that scene, I tear up a little bit. And it's not because I'm like, Star Wars is magical, it's because it makes me think back to like when I was a kid, and when you're fun and things are innocent and carefree, and growing up and watching, like, sitting on the couch with my dad and my older brother, who, my dad is, my older brother, unfortunately, is no longer with us. He was killed back in 2002 by a drunk douchebag. And I think back to like, and my brother wanted to be a pilot. So it's one of those things where I think back to like, like my brother's in one of the X-Wings, and me and my dad are on the couch with him. So it's one of those, I need to be real and say that's a fair moment where it made me go, yeah, get the X-Wings there, man. The rebellion's here, man. But it's like, but it's not really the rebellion. It's the resistance, which is similar to the rebellion. But what are they rebelling against? Well, not the Republic, because apparently the Republic is back. The First Order they're rebelling against. What's the First Order? Well, they're just leftover Empire guys, but not quite Empire guys. I don't know. like, I'll be straightforward. I would say go and watch the Red Letter Media videos on how they break down and dissect episode 7 and 8. And I assume when 9 comes out, there'll be a Mr. Plinkett reviews videos on that. Maybe, unless they play their cards really well, which I unfortunately don't think they will. But anyway, that's a few. I'm getting a little ahead. So episode 7 did nothing for me. It ended off with like mystery, which I guess, but like the ending, the like mystery for some of the other stuff. But then it ends on this moment of, oh, Rey gets to Luke Skywalker, and there were all these questions of, is Rey Luke Skywalker's long lost daughter? Is she even related to the Skywalkers like Luke and Leia? She's obviously a Force user, and she's obviously getting way quicker in this one movie than Luke did in episode 4. And then but like, there's no word shared. There's like, Luke looked like he's morphed into this Merlin hermit type figure, and Rey is like dramatically handing the lightsaber back. And I'm like, okay, but then like it ends, and then episode 8 picks up. And I'm gonna say, like, just pause and reflect. How do I feel about 7? I thought that 7 had unnecessary callbacks to the first trilogy, and tried to avoid callbacks unless it had no other choice to the prequel trilogy. I didn't like Rey, Finn, Kylo Ren, or Poe Dameron, i.e. the main cast. And then I thought that the one alien that was prominent was like Maz Pagoda, or whatever stupid name is. It doesn't matter. The point is, she is, and of course, like, she's this tiny orange thing with big eyes. But oh, it turns out she has tiny eyes. But then the magnifying glasses the goggles make her eyes bigger. That's cute. That's funny, I guess. And then and Chewie. Of course, Chewie's back, but Chewie just grunts. You have to have people interpret what he's saying. And also, that's another side note that bothered me with 7. They have a budget. Disney, the mouse, had a budget to have characters that weren't human be the main characters, and unfortunately, all they did was, it's the same movie, same thing of just, oh no, it's everybody's human except Chewie, and that's it. I'm like, oh, fuck this. Are you kidding me? And also, I don't know, this is going to sound weird, but like, fantasy racism and space racism are things that really bother me, because especially for situations like this where they had a budget. They could have made Rey a Twi'lek. They could have made Finn a Bothan. They could have made Kylo Ren be the only human, and they could have made Poe Dameron be like something like a Rodian, or maybe like they could have even just had him be Chewie, and Chewie is talking and not growling. I don't know, but then they're like, and then of course you can have the Star Wars fans crawl out of their parents, like xenomorph basements and be like, Wookiees cannot talk, or all that they can understand and growl in certain tones that only other people can pick up. I don't care. Screw you. The point is, I would like to see some alien representation in this universe. It's not even a galaxy. You can't say it's galaxy. It's universe, because there's multiple people, multiple planetary systems, and the space racism in Star Wars is like, why? Like, and don't even say budget, because they have money. They knew they were going to be making it back with Star Wars. Even if people hated it, people still were going to go out in droves because it's Star Wars. It sells. They have no excuse not to have like aliens being like people that affect things. And like, heck, they could have even at least had like some random race that we had seen only in passing, but like maybe this character is going to get more development. Anyway, I digress. The point is, I'm tired of space racism and fantasy racism in major franchises where they clearly have money to not have only humans, or human with like, they have pointy ears and that counts, and it's like, okay, fine, but you can do more than that, shit. Anyway, so episode 8 picks up. I'm already having some gripes and hoping for the best. And episode 8, which apparently was given over to Rian Johnson, at least I believe that's the guy who got it. And if it's not him, the point is they gave it. The point is, again, Red Letter Media. They just gave it to one guy. They gave it to some guy. Episode 8 starts with that pivotal moment where like Rey is handing back the lightsaber, and Luke Skywalker picks up the lightsaber, and then he tosses it over his shoulder and moves on. And that immediately made me go, oh no, this is going to be a bad comedy. And it was. And 8, like, I'm trying to think of the good moments in 8. And again, like 7, the only good moment was that emotional moment where like the X-Wings come back in. And I guess the lightsaber fights were epic and they're destructional. Like, the environment was destructive and falling apart. I guess that's epic, whatever. I don't know. Episode 8 was like, okay, well, we have to have like effectively sort of like this homage to like the war movies, like the World War II movies, and there's like space bombers and they're destroying like the super Death Stars and crap like that, super Star Destroyers. not Death Star, sorry. Um, and then they introduce like, and it's like they have these characters, and then Poe Dameron is like a loose cannon, and of course like there's this metaphor for like he's toxic masculinity or something like that. Okay, great, yeah, he has to be corralled, fine, I get it. But they don't really open him up to a lot of things, and then the whole point of him like them having to compartmentalize information. Oh, and then freaking what's her name? Uh, Ellie Sadler from Jurassic Park. She comes in and she's playing like tall lady with purple hair that apparently was a prominent strategist for the rebellion. I'm sorry, the resistance. And then Finn, and it's like, okay, well, Laura Dern, that's her name. And then like Finn wakes up and he's like, I gotta get the hell out of here. I don't want to be a part of this. So he's trying to escape, and then random lady Rose is in the. Apparently her sister died, and Rose is like, hey, you're trying to escape, and she's like zaps him, and then eventually they're brainstorming about how they can totally screw over the rebellion or the First Order. And like it's fun. I will say this about Rose. I feel bad for the actress because the actress is when apparently after the movie came out, the actress was highly discriminated against, and she said she was depressed, and the excitement of being in a Star Wars movie made her go, I don't even know if I can be in this franchise. I don't even know if I should be in acting anymore because I don't think I can take the heat. And people are really discriminating against her because she's Asian. Now, as a side note, when I saw her in the movie, I had never seen that actress before, and I saw her and I went, oh, there's the Chinese demographic. But as it turns out, she wasn't the Chinese demographic. Her last name was Tran. I think she's Vietnamese. And so I was like, okay, well, my bad. That's a fair thing to be thinking though, because a lot of people have been trying to cater to China because it's a huge market. Like, holy crap. And honestly, I think that's a bad idea because yes, you'll make money, but you're going to be limiting yourself from a storytelling standpoint. Also, as of right now, Chinese movies don't have anything to do with like the supernatural, and they don't appreciate homosexuality, bisexuality, trans. They are not. China is right now not LGBTQ progressive. Now, if you don't appreciate that, okay, well then go to China, I guess, and be a commie. If you do appreciate like they're having an issue right now, then you need to stand with people and say, don't cater to China. Take a better high ground. Anyway, hold on. But episode 8 has just terrible. To get back to the point, episode 8 was lame, and it really felt like it was this meta hipster. I'm going to do everything I can to, and I hate this term. I hate this term because it's been popping up more and more the past like 5 or 6 years. Subverting your expectations. Episode 8 was subverting your expectations, the movie, and that bothers me. Now I applaud the effort of saying you're not going to get what you're expecting, but I don't applaud the follow through of everything is going to just be turned on its head. The epic action moments aren't really going to be the epic action moments. The lightsaber duels that you're hoping, there's not technically really lightsaber duels between the people with them. They're fighting other people. And then things like that. And then, of course, like General Phasma, you think you're going to get this epic moment where she's like hulking out and punching people, or maybe she's a Force user, you don't know. But all she does is she gets into a 15-second duel, falls into an explosion, and dies. And she didn't even have her helmet removed. Like the actress who plays General Phasma is also, my first love, Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones. Tall, strong lady, Amazons for the win. Ladies, if you need that, you can come and talk to me. The point is, General Phasma, you don't even get to see her face. You just see like a scar across part of her helmet. So you see her eye, and she like looks at the camera, and then she falls into an explosion, and it's like little Phasma's dead, I guess. And then there's like the thing of Kylo Ren and Rey apparently confront Snoke, and Kylo Ren turns on Snoke, and then his guard turns on both of them, and they barely fight their way out. And then of course there's like a join me homage moment, but of course Rey is like, I don't want my friends to die, so no, which is kind of fair. But even then, there's just lame moments where like Rose and Finn go to evil space gambling planet, and they free these big, cute, cuddly horse animals with dog faces. And of course, the whole thing is a metaphor for like the exploitation of the wealthy and the rich in like the entertainment and things like that. And anyway, but then they free the big dog horse things, and it's a metaphor for we have to go back to nature, I guess, and then they did the right thing. And it's like, yeah, but you didn't really find the guy you looked for. You didn't find the guy you were hoping for. Also, there's a terrible amateur cutaway moment where they go there and they're looking for what they think is like this space James Bond guy that can help them infiltrate the rebellion and yada, yada, yada. And apparently they find the guy, but not before being tased and thrown into the jail. But like the way that they shot that scene, you find, I guess, that guy, and there's like, and he has like a lady next to her, and she notices Rose and Finn being tased and hauled away, and then but then like there's the scene that scene continues for about 5 seconds, and it cuts to her turning to the guy with the white tuxedo and the rose, and she's like, "Hey, did you see that?" And the guy's like, "Huh, not now." And then she cuts back to the camera, and like it gives an acknowledging look, like there's like this is going to continue. Cut. No, they never go back to those people. When Finn and Rose are in the jail, they encounter Benicio del Toro's character, and at first I didn't realize it was him, and then I was like, wait, no, that's him, and he's like literally space junkie thief douchebag that you can't trust, and of course he betrays him by the end of it because he's out for his own good. He's even worse than Han Solo. But the point is, there's like a terrible moment where like they don't cut away from that properly, and then they have these characters, they infiltrate the rebellion. Oh, they got screwed over by Benicio del Toro's like space cheap cadet, like, you know, CAD, basically. He's a space CAD. Anyway, and of course, like, you know, there's nothing really fulfilling about that part. The Poe Dameron has to deal with the thing of, oh no, I was being lied to, but I realized they were protecting me from my own loose cannonness. And then like Luke Skywalker turns out like he made a mistake with Kylo Ren. Like at the last moment he hesitated, and he wanted to kill him because he looked ahead and said like, this kid's gonna become like possibly the next Darth Vader or something, but then he stops himself, but Kylo Ren's like, what are you doing? And then of course that's what starts that fallout, and then obviously the Knights of Ren, and then they kill off Luke's followers and the Jedi, and he finds the Sith guy, but then he kills him, so it's not really the Sith. The point is, they do this thing. Episode 8 was like, okay, so they just literally flipped everything on its head. And again, the red letter media guys, not to keep commenting on what they say, but they made a point of, episode 8 was not quite what people were expecting, and it's complicated because it's very topsy-turvy, and it ends in a really, really epic display that makes them go, this feels like the end of the trilogy, because it almost harkens back to episode 6 with some elements of 5 in there. And then you find out, like, okay, well, obviously, and then it hints at the end that, like, other people have the Force, which, of course, we've known that. Did the filmmakers think that the average people going to see this movie, only like 5 people had the Force? No, the Force is going to keep going out to other people, but people thought that was like an epic moment or something. I don't know. 8 was dumb. And 8 made me go, I don't, like, I guess where are they going to take this? And then lo and behold, I saw the trailer for 9 a few months ago, and it, like, I went to the movie theaters, I don't remember what for, and then I, like, what movie I was seeing, and then I saw the trailer for 9, and at first it was like, oh, well, okay, epic space action, and they're building up that like it's the end of an era, which that's horse shit. Disney's going to keep making Star Wars movies, and there's going to be an episode 10, 11, 12. There just is at some point. Maybe not immediately, but at some point. I think Disney's going to take a step back after 9 and see what is working and what's not. Because with Marvel, they've had a consistent success ratio, period. But with Star Wars, I think they're trying to make sure it's handled properly, because I do think the people that wanted Star Wars from Disney were also the people like us that were like diehard fans that wanted to see a good franchise get back on track and get past the silliness and the stupidity. But I saw the trailer for 9, and I was like, okay, well, Rey, Finn, and Poe are teaming up. They're going to meet others along the way. Oh, Lando's back. Oh, Billy D. It's Billy D. Crazy, cool. Billy D. is Lando. What has he been doing? I mean, they ran through Luke and Leia. They ran through Han and Chewie. Who were the other classic characters? Oh, well, I guess Lando. Well, why not? Let's bring him back in. Played by Billy D. I wonder how much weight Billy D. lost for this role, by the way. I haven't looked that up. But like Luke and Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill definitely lost weight to get back to the characters they needed. Anyway. But then the trailer ends with the Emperor's laughter. And that made me go, no, leave this character in the dust. He's done. He needs to not come back. There were previous storylines in Star Wars before Disney wiped the slate clean and said all that stuff is non-canon, where the Emperor was being cloned, and Mark Hamill's and Luke Skywalker had to deal with clone emperors and people wanting to bring back the cults. It's like, that's not cool. Move forward. Be more original than that. I don't want the Emperor to come back. He doesn't need to. He was the guy that masterminded the original fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire, and he got lucky, but he also used the Force because he was actually a Sith Lord, and he poisoned Anakin to be on his side, but he screwed up a lot of things. Like Darth Vader Anyway, the point is, the Emperor needs to stay dead. They need to figure out what else they're going to do here. And I don't care. And that's the thing. I don't care about 9 because it's literally just going to be them. Well, we need to go back to the bottom of the well, and oh hey, the Emperor. Let's scoop this back up and throw it in there. I don't care about the Emperor, and I don't. But also, it also made me realize that I personally don't give a crap about any of the new major characters in the Star Wars franchises, in the Star Wars trilogy anyway, like 7, 8, and what will be 9. I don't like Rey. I don't really care about Rey, because she's like, I'm just gonna be the Jedi, whatever character. I don't like Finn because he's just a reluctant dude who doesn't even do being a reluctant hero well. I don't like Poe Dameron because he's just the cocksure space pirate, space star rogue, whatever you want to call him, and I don't really give a crap about him either. And then Kylo Ren is interesting, and I want to see him sort of have like a redemption arc, but it's like it's hard to garner sympathy and really push for a redemption arc when the first episode 7 was the entire time as he keeps saying like, I want to be as bad as I want to be a bad guy like Darth Vader. Well, of course he didn't say bad guy. He's like, I want to resurrect my grandfather's legacy and be like him and be a master of the Sith and the Force. And then you finally slowly realize that even he's not sure what he's doing, but yet he kind of wants to be. He's kind of power hungry, but he's not. He's bad, but you wanted to like him. And it's like, what is this? I don't care. As a side note, and I do want to mention one other thing, as I mentioned earlier, like fantasy and space racism, and I will give some credit to Disney, because when they started 7, who are the main characters? It's a young white woman, a young black man, and then Isaac, whatever his name, the guy who plays Poe Dameron, is a Spanish man. But what I hate to put it this way, what I really mean is he's a brown man. And then the bad guy is actually a young white man, which I think is, from a demographic standpoint, that's great. That's great from a demographic standpoint. They included women, they included like a couple of different minorities, and then the bad guy is a young white dude, which I'm like, okay, that's a little offensive, but it's funny because the pendulum, I guess, needs to swing in the opposite direction. So I appreciate their demographic inclusion. I do appreciate that level of demographic. Oh, and then 8 introduced Rose, so they had a Far Eastern, non-Chinese person or ethnicity involved in this. And then Chewie is like the only alien, which I won't bring that up again. So I appreciate the demographic stuff. But with 9, even with that, even with the things like that I appreciate, I also realize I don't give a crap about what happens to any of these people. I don't care, because we find out that Rey is just a rando, and then Finn is just a rando, and Poe Dameron is, in the scheme of things, like, okay, rebellion guy, and Kylo Ren is could have been a hero but turned against Skywalker because he thinks that, or he woke up and saw Skywalker looking like an evil dude about to cut his head off with a lightsaber, and he thought he had to defend himself. And it's okay, so misunderstanding. Totally, I get it. He becomes a villain because of a misunderstanding. It's fine. But like, and then anyway, the point is, I've had 2 different friends say they want to give me tickets for episode 9, and I'm probably going to back down because one of them is probably going to get tickets for me. What I'm trying to get at is episode 9 is something that I'm not excited for, because, and it's not just even the trilogy. Let's talk about the other movies that came out for a second and the TV shows. Now, here's the thing. This is sort of weird because the TV shows, and what I mean by like that, the animated shows like Star Wars Rebels, the original Clone Wars, like 3D animation, I never saw the 2D one, were actually doing really good. Like I watched Star Wars, like Clone Wars was pretty good. I saw Star Wars Rebels. It's on my shelf. Star Wars Rebels is pretty good. I finished season 3, and I think I had gotten a little bit through 4 or something like that. But I got through like 3 or 4 of Star Wars Rebels, and Rebels is a good show, and it plays around with that universe, and they go different places, and there's different things they mess around with. Hell, one of the characters is a Mandalorian, and then the guy who becomes a Force user, he encounters the young dude who also has Force potential, so he becomes a Padawan, and they have learning moments, and then they encounter like some old veteran Clone Wars dudes, and like you're at first you're thinking like, well, they're clearly douchebags, but then you find out no, they're just trying to survive, and then they kind of become friends at the end, and there's other people along the way. They include Thrawn. They redid Thrawn, and he's awesome. I even read on my bookshelf over here. I have the first rewritten Thrawn novel by Timothy Zahn, and I really enjoyed that. I thought that was great. It was original. It was a fun read. Star Wars Rebels is great, and the 3D Clone Wars at the time that I remember watching it a few years ago was also great. Um, so their TV shows, and I'll mention the Mandalorian in a second, but their TV shows are doing good. But then getting back to the movies. So after 7 came out, they were hyping up Rogue One. What's Rogue One going to be? Well, Rogue One, in my opinion, it felt like it was trying to be two movies that got crammed down into one movie. And Rogue One's like, it starts off with like a dark intrigue kind of movie, a lot more grounded, not very much. It's not like Force heavy. It's more about like, oh, the dude who helped design the Death Star, but like he gets abducted, but his wife gets killed, but his daughter runs away, becomes sort of like a criminal, but also she joins the rebellion at first reluctantly, but then realizes that she needs to fight the good fight, I guess. Really, she wants to find her dad, played by Mads Mikkelsen, who's awesome. He's a cool dude. I think he was good, but it's funny he didn't get cast as a bad guy, got cast as a good guy. But like Rogue One is so distracted in my opinion. First off, the cast. I don't know anything about any of the characters except the main character, Jyn Erso. But the only thing I know about her is that her mom's dead, her dad got abducted, like conscripted by the Empire, and she starts off as like, I don't really care about any of this, I'm just a survivor. But then she finds her dad, and then she's like, no, I have to join the rebellion now because I'm gonna fight for it. And then apparently she has to motivate the rebellion to fight, even though like 20 minutes earlier she was like, screw the rebellion, I don't care. And then and then she gets a ragtag team along the way. She gets like what's his name, Luna, or whatever. Like the guy plays like a random space, like a spy for the rebellion. But then they encounter these two dudes, one of them played by Donnie Yen, who Donnie Yen is an awesome dude. And they had him be like a martial arts master and a force user, so it's like a little verging into like old Hollywood Far Eastern stereotype, but it's fine because I'm gonna say it's fine because it's Donnie Yen. And then he had his beefy buddy who was like the heavy weapons guy, like the heavy arms dude. And then they had a wisecracking droid who at first I liked, and then in hindsight I realized that I don't really care. But what I'm trying to get at is Rogue One, like it starts out as an intrigue movie, a spy movie, but then it cuts and immediately goes into like this war battle movie, and it gets really epic pretty quick in my opinion. I will give the studio balls for saying, I will say they got balls for saying that we have this entire cast and they die, and at the end of Rogue One they all sacrifice themselves. And when I was talking to some of my friends recently, one of my friends was like, I love Rogue One. And I was like, I hate it. It's the most unfulfilling thing ever. For me, it's like you don't hardly know any of the characters. You don't get hardly any of the backstory. Even Diego Luna's character, that's it, Diego Luna. Even his character, you only get this faint idea that his family was killed and this is all he has left. But even then, it's so vague. It's like, no, there needs to be more. Like, that's my thing. Rogue One should have been, in my opinion, 2 movies. But I think that even if that was a discussion in the writing room, they said, no, we want to do 1 movie and just have it be its own thing. We're not going to do a part 2. We're already doing a trilogy. Let's have its own movie. And I just think it was misconceived from the start. And the reason I say that is because people randomly kept saying, like, yes, this is about, like, many Bothans died to get this information on the Death Star. Why didn't they show Bothans? To which everybody who said that immediately had to be corrected and say, no, that was actually episode 6. Episode 4, it was just some rebellion dudes. Episode 6 is that line of many Bothan people, like many people from the Bothan collective died to get this information for us. But I met so many people that said, where are all the Bothans at? So, which says to me, they probably should have just made that movie, so that way people can go, hey, Bothans. They could have had a movie with alien representation. Instead, this movie was just nothing but, again, humans and 1 droid this time instead of 1 alien. And it's like, where's your fucking budget going to, man? I'm sorry, it's a little weirdly offensive from a fictional standpoint. So something about that bothers me. But it's like, okay, well, they could have at least done that movie. Instead, they did this movie, and it's like an immediate lead up to episode 4. It ends in epic space battle, and everybody valiantly sacrifices themselves, but the dramatic impact isn't there because you don't know who these people are. I'm sorry. If somebody you don't know valiantly sacrifices themselves, it can be pretty intense. If somebody that you do know sacrifices themselves valiantly, that's intense. That is drama. That is fulfilling. That is, oh no, the person died. I hope they weren't going to die. I didn't even see it coming, maybe. But like people you don't know dying is like, well, that's sad. I have no attachment. There's no attachment here. So Rogue One was just unfulfilling. I felt like it should have been two movies. It should have started off as an intrigue movie, then it should have gone into a war movie. But I digress. What's done is done. And also a side note: the only thing that people say was cool unanimously about Rogue One was at the end, Darth Vader comes in like a ball of, with his lightsaber, and he's like showing off how awesome he is. That should have been. I'm sitting there thinking like they should have just made that movie. Then they should have just made a movie about Darth Vader and just had him being a badass or something. Like that would have been more interesting. Instead, we get this like I was gonna say Hogan's Heroes. We get this like Dirty Dozen kind of somewhat spy movie where people just end up dying off at the end, and I was just sitting there going like I don't like. Part of me wants to like this, but I'm never gonna sit down and watch it again unless I'm like. I guess I'm really in a Star Wars marathon kick, but even then I'm like, I don't really want. I'm gonna have to like get through it. Oh, whatever. I'll just like make dinner while I'm doing it or something, right? Anyway, so I'm not a fan of Rogue One. I think it was misconceived. I would like to have learned more about who these characters actually were because that would have made the dramatic impact of their sacrifice mean something as opposed to just their archetypes. They're so 2D. Actually, they're not even archetypal. They're two-dimensional, barely recognizable archetypes. So, whatever. If you liked Rogue One, great. I don't want to keep shitting in her Cheerios. Um, but anyway, so like Rogue One came out, again, not impressed. Um, and then after that, they said, well, we're going to do a Han Solo movie. They were hyping that for a while. Then they said after that, they were going to do a Boba Fett movie. And I was like, okay, Han Solo, do. Boba Fett, don't do. Get somebody else. There's other people in Star Wars. Boba Fett's not a great character. He looks cool. That's it. Now, Han Solo had promise. The problem is that I was there from when they announced that and during pre-production. And I will admit, at the time, I boycotted Solo. For primarily one big reason, and that was because after the movie was coming on, there was this, as the movie was being made, there was a lot of bad and negative press. People were saying that Kathleen Kennedy was trying to screw over the directors and say, "Oh no, you need to do this," and the original directors that were hired on felt like they weren't given enough control. And also, the main problem was the actor who played Han Solo apparently was so bad that they had to get acting. They had to get an acting coach to come on and teach him how to act on camera in order to make this movie work. And at the time, I was still agented. I still had an agency. I was still working as an actor. I was trying to hit it big. I was hoping for that endless opportunity that you hope for when you're an actor, trying to get something big or at least fulfilling. And I was sitting there kind of going like, I would be embarrassed as shit if I was cast for a major motion picture and the director had to go cut. We're going to need an acting coach for this guy. Get one now. All right, that was pretty good. Let's reconvene tomorrow. Like, I would be embarrassed if I was told I needed to continue having acting lessons on set while this guy had gotten cast. And here's the thing, the movie cost millions of dollars, and everybody should have been on the same page of, we don't want to screw this up. We need to make sure the casting is proper, or like going to get the job done. And the main character needs acting lessons. So at the time, that put me in a bad mood, so I boycotted the movie. And it wasn't even just that. When the director was like, "Oh no, we need to keep things as they are," when the executive producers said we need to keep things as they are, the original directors leave, and instead they get Ron Howard. Which, as a side note, there's still not a lot of representation in the directing field. It's all mostly white men, things like that. Again, they're kind of disingenuous. Like I say, the Red Letter Media guys again. They were like this. Disney is disingenuous because they keep saying we're going to have representation very soon. They get an old white guy to do that Star Wars movie and to pick up the pieces. Also, I do need to stop and just say I have not gone back and watched Solo, and I know some of you are going to tell me to go and watch it because it's a great space rogue adventure movie. It's not really like a good Han Solo movie. I've been told unanimously it's not a good Han Solo movie, but it is a good like space rogue movie. I'm still not going to sit down and watch it unless I have literally nothing better to do, for also other reasons. Emilia Clarke, the gal who got big from playing Daenerys Targaryen on Game of Thrones, I think she's pretty. I don't think she's that great of an actress, but I'll withhold judgment until I see Solo. I will say one thing though. I've been told about the social justice warrior, the SJW droid, or the meme droid, whatever you want to call her. And I kind of feel like that's going to be one of those things where just based off descriptions, it's going to be cheap and pandering. It's going to really bother me. But again, I can't say anything until I see it. But I will say one thing. I don't like Donald Glover. Donald Glover is an okay performer. He's an okay actor. He's a good comedian. He's also a singer-songwriter. He seems like a guy who's talented. People love him. I don't care if this is going to cause controversy. I think Donald Glover looks like a creep. He has creepy eyes. He's not a bad looking guy objectively. It's just his eyes, like this part of him. He looks like a rapist. I shouldn't say things like that, but he looks like a creep. He looks like a cheap, like he looks like a pedophile or a rapist or a sexual assaulter. Like he looks creepy to me. To me, I will admit this is completely subjective. I'm not trying to make accusations. He's probably a great guy. Donates probably money to charity. He hasn't done anything illegal, as far as I know. I'm just saying he looks like a creep. And when he's on the camera, just staring at me with his eyes, and I'm just like, I don't want to see Lando played by this guy. It's kind of, to me, it's like a bastardization. But I completely admit that is a subjective criticism. I'm just saying I don't want to see a movie where a creepo looks at me and gives me one-liners, because that's not going to draw me in. It's just not. I will admit that is a problem I have. It's not going to be anyone else's problem. If anybody happens to agree with me on this, by all means. But if you think he's great and you don't think he's a creep, great too. I don't care. I don't want to see Solo. Maybe with the exception of like that epic train heist scene. But even then, I'm like, I don't really want to see it. Like I started watching it 5 or 10 minutes into it when I was on an airplane like a year ago. And I remember going like, I'll start watching Solo. And then they cut it off after like 5 minutes and said, you have to buy the service. I'm like, I'm not spending money on this. I already spent money on a plane ticket. No. Point is, I'm not going to see Solo. I still, in a way, as an actor, kind of feel like I need to boycott. When executive control is that mismanaging, that means your movie's not going to work. And also, there's been plenty of people telling me that the color palette is darker than Rogue One. And there's times where it's so dark that it's like, did they light this properly, or was this a post problem? I don't know, and I don't care. So what I'm trying to say, and then also recently I've been told, now here's the thing, they did not do they're not going to do a Boba Fett movie, but they were talking about doing an Obi-Wan movie. That can work. I don't know. Apparently at the end of Solo, Darth Maul makes a weird cameo and people for like a minute. And it's like, and then of course that's supposed to be sowing seeds for like, hey, we're gonna make an Obi-Wan movie. Which if they do, great. And I hope they do well. I don't know. I just don't care. I don't care about Star Wars anymore. Now I will say this: the only thing that's making me rethink potentially wanting to go see 9 is The Mandalorian came out a few weeks ago. Now up until this Mandalorian thing, I was still on the same page I was still on the page of, well, they're going to make a Boba Fett movie, but then I heard about this Mandalorian. I'm like, what is this? And then I saw the trailer, and I was like, okay, you kind of have my attention. And then I watched The Mandalorian, the premiere episode with my roommates when they premiered Disney Plus, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I will admit, it is damn near, as a show, it's damn near perfect. I will get to the point as to why it's not completely. I'll get to the point in just a second of why it's not perfect and why it's damn near perfect. But it's a show that's like, main character is just a quiet, awesome badass. He's, he's a bounty hunter, good with his fists. He has good techno gadgets, and he's got a really good gun apparently. And he's also Mandalorian, so there's like this mystique of like you wanting to learn more about the lore in Star Wars. And there's plenty of the Mandalore. The Mandalore, get it? And bad joke. Shame on me. Gin time. Hold on. More gin. Support our troops, but not the douchebags who get off from, torturing non-Americans. Anyway, so The Mandalorian is awesome. The main character is great. I would like to actually see Pedro Pascal's face, but there's this lore of like you can't take your helmet off, and I'm like, you cast a Latin actor you know, and you want representation, and you're not going to have him take his helmet off. Okay, fine. But anyway, that aside, that nitpicky comment aside, you know, The Mandalorian is a darn good show. It's fun. It feels like there's episodes where it feels like it's a space western. Then there's episodes where it feels like it's a crime intrigue type show. And then there's episodes where, and then there's like one episode that's like Seven Samurai, or no, not Seven Samurai. Yeah, Seven Samurai. And I don't want to give too much away for those of you who haven't seen The Mandalorian yet, but it's only like less than halfway out now. So there's plenty more of it to see and catch. And apparently there's going to be fun cameos and stuff like that. You know, hell, they had Apollo Creed in the first episode, or they get the actor who played Apollo Creed. Oh crap, what's his name? George? No, that's not right. Anyway, the point is, they did have, like, you know, what's his name? Werner Herzog playing evil space villain. I love Werner Herzog. Anyway, so, but I'm going to say one thing, and again, spoilers. The one reason I would say The Mandalorian is damn near perfect and not perfect is because, and again, spoilers, for end of first episode is left with a MacGuffin. And the MacGuffin is, now, I would say that the MacGuffin is a problem from a franchise standpoint, not from a commercial standpoint. From a commercial standpoint, it's brilliant. From a narrative standpoint, it's fine. And damn, are there going to be a lot of things sold in this category, but the MacGuffin is what makes me also realize that this is the problem I'm having with Star Wars now. 7 was calling back to a lot of things previous Star Wars. 8 was doing it too. I know 9's going to. And then Star Wars Rogue One is like, well, we can tell these original character stories, but it's just going to be a immediate lead up to Episode 4. And then Han Solo is one of the original beloved characters. I don't know. And then, but like The Mandalorian is like, okay, it's going to be original. And then the first episode ends with the bounty hunter saving and realizing that his target is a baby member of Yoda's race, of Yoda's people. It's a baby Yoda, basically. Now, I don't think it's Yoda's kid. I think it's probably just a member of their race. He probably has nothing to do with Yoda. I hope he has nothing to do. I hope it's just a random alien that happens just to be whatever his people are called. But it ends with them going, oh, it's a baby Yoda. And that immediately made me go, oh, they have no original ideas anymore. They have no original ideas. Star Wars? Really, Star Wars? You could have picked anything else. It's fine. It's not. I'm going to do the Lindsay Ellis thing. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. For me, Star Wars has become a franchise that is just hearkening back to previous installments. It's hearkening back to what it can't escape from, which is the best, but it also does have to kind of pay tribute to the other things that came along the way. But even when they do the show, which is actually, I would argue The Mandalorian is the best thing that they put out Star Wars related. Again, I haven't seen Solo, but it has had a lot of problematic criticism. And by that I mean criticisms to which it's saying it's a problem. Rogue One was, to me, a really unfulfilling experience. Episode 7 had one emotional moment, and the rest was like, what is this? And 8 was like, are you kidding me? And I don't care about 9. And then, even though Star Wars Rebels is good, again, it's not the major motion picture. But it's like Star Wars as a franchise is only hearkening back to old things. And I almost feel in a way like that's kind of sad because they need to play around with new ideas, but the ones they want to play around with are still only like, it's still leftover elements peppered into it. So I'm a little, for me, it's like, okay, so this is a franchise that is afraid to break out of its shell. And when it tries to break out of its shell, it has a really rough time, which you can only blame so much for that. But ultimately, it's like, I'm thinking back to when I was a kid, and I remember like, okay, 4, 5, and 6 were gold, and then the prequels were garbage, and then despite their strong elements that they did have, and then it's like the new ones are in the middle for me. But Rebels is good, Mandalorian's great, but it's like, it's a franchise that can't escape its shadow. And I know that there's probably some of you thinking like, well, what's the problem with that? Like Marvel's had a 17-year, 11, no, not 17-year. Marvel had a franchise with like a little over 20-something movies. And they would occasionally kind of harken back to some of those earlier flicks. And even like making jokes about the original stuff just kind of peppered in there. Terminator is a franchise that I grew up with as a kid. There was like 1 and 2, and then 3 came out when I was in middle school, high school. But the problem with Terminator is that it's in that same vein of like it can't escape the original. It can't go in a different direction. And I know some people are going to say, well, do you want more of the same? Because then, do you want more of the same, which is in that vein, or do you want something completely different, which is not in that vein anymore? And with Star Wars, you're going to have Force and the lightsabers and the space battles and droids and even cool exotic aliens every once in a while, because that's what it was. That's what it was founded on. And I'm a little. That's the thing. I don't know. I think this is good evidence that right now I'm 30 years old. And I grew up as a kid watching Star Wars. You know, my parents were nerdy people. My dad loved Star Wars, so he showed it to us when I was a really little kid. We were growing up watching it, and I'm sort of thinking like things change, everything changes over time. Sometimes things sometimes things do cycle back, and harken back to what was going on originally. But there is a part of me that's like, really, you can't escape that, and it made me feel like, and in a way that made me go, I think I'm going to finish this Mandalorian show, whenever it's done. It's not done yet. I'm going to finish the Mandalorian and then just say I'm done with Star Wars, because in a way I also feel like you can go with the herd, but if the herd is going in the direction of putting more money in Disney's pockets, and Disney's like, well, they handled Marvel movies great, but that's also because they let the people who knew what they were doing handle it and took that risk, and it paid off. The hell it paid off. Star Wars, I think they're like, well, we don't really have Kevin Feige for Marvel, like for the Star Wars franchise. So they keep trying to find different people, and they keep wanting to do different things, like multiple media projects with it. And I ultimately feel like there's a part of me that's like, it's just a franchise that's now being put out strategically to call back to these things that were great before then and never going to be able to capture it. And I think some of the people know but are trying. But let me just look. I'm just going to say this. I am not excited for episode 9. I will more than likely end up going to see it because I'm probably going to have a friend with a ticket who's going to take me over there. I don't want to get into, but it's one of those things where I'm going to watch it and I'm going to be like, I don't know where it's going to go, but in a way, I don't care. And I know that's not a cool thing to say. But at the same time, I'm like, The Mandalorian is like, I just want to see stuff like this, but not harken back and be locked into the original. Because I'm also thinking back to like Yoda, an iconic character from the original, but then they brought him back and like he was in the prequels and he was dancing around fighting Count Dooku with his little green lightsaber. And that right there just shows just the lack of thought, or the lack of like variety and flexibility. Like they asked George Lucas, like, what is Yoda's blood? Green? And then he goes into a fight with Count Dooku and he pulls out a little lightsaber. And it's green. Like, what the fuck? Like, okay, like, I'm looking at, okay, just time out. I'm looking at my skin tone. I'm a fairly white guy. I get some dark features here, but I'm a pretty white guy. I don't only wear light colors and white clothing. I don't want to have like swords and guns, but only like white and off-white colors. It doesn't make any sense. I have variety. Most people have variety. Most people, the vast majority of people don't walk around with only flesh tones, mimicking their flesh tone. And also, even though like I'm like white, like whether you're white, like brown, black, red, yellow, whatever skin color, on the inside, all of our blood is blue. And then when we get cut and it gets exposed to oxygen, get exposed to the oxygen in the atmosphere, it becomes red. And even if, like, let's say you take the red man has never been so blood red. You know what I mean? So to me, it's like Yoda's green. Oh, and his blood is green. Oh, and he also has a green lightsaber. And it's like that was, okay, fair. That was a problem and the lack of foresight and scope you'd see in the prequel trilogy. Well, what's the new trilogy? Oh, we're bringing back the Emperor, apparently, in episode 9. And if they don't, and that's only there just to tease you, then they're pandering only to the fans. Instead of standing on their own 2 feet, standing on their ground, and saying, we're taking Star Wars in this direction. Why? Because it's not going to be the same. and we want to tell good stories with it that feel like Star Wars, but we do need to change up the formula because we've evolved. There's a reason that they started off the new trilogy with a young white woman, a young black man, a fairly young a Spanish man, and then also made the villain a white guy who kind of looks a little slightly Jewish. But honestly, even if he's not, and he's just like a regular full-blown white dude from whatever ethnicity or heritage, that's fine. That's not the point. The main good guys are not archetypal white actionable white males. They're not. Great. They had that scope. But what did they do with it? Well, they have BB-88, who's just a cute, slightly cuter version of R2-D2 because we needed a cutesy droid. And then there's callbacks to, random places and things that happened in the previous movies, and we can't really go past that. And all of the action moments and all of the epic moments are harkening back to the Death Star, planets being destroyed, and it's like, and then of course they get to the Force and they start to be original with the Force in 8, but I don't bank on them being original with it in 9. I just don't. I don't know if I've said. I'm at a point now where I don't want to keep rambling. I just want to make the point of, I do think the Star Wars came back. It did okay, but it's splitting off in depending on which direction you're looking at. In my opinion, the movies have all gone downhill. And the TV shows have all gone uphill. But they will never be able to escape the the original golden ratio, the original golden trilogy, the sacred cow, which is episodes 4, 5, and 6. It was a great trilogy, and even if people, and here's the thing, even if people were like, well, episode 6 wasn't that great, and I think that Rogue One is better than 6, or something like that, okay, that's fine. I'm just voicing my opinion, man. Gin time. I wish I had a better camera and a better mic. Anyway, look, I think I've rambled enough. I just want to say that, just as in a recap, things like when I was a kid, 4, 5, and 6 was all I knew. It was all that was available, and it was amazing. And then as time moved on, the prequel trilogy came out, and that caused such a huge schism in the fan base. But it did have a few newer generation of fans appreciating Star Wars in that vein, but hearing the older generation go, the original was better. Finally, the next generation got a hold of, I say the next generation, the next generation got to be exposed to the newest trilogy and how it's being handled. And you can tell that there are people that are going to be flipping out because there are no white people versus people that are flipping out because, like there's not the same Star Wars elements versus people that are flipping out because they want more of what it is right now. I get it. I get what it is. And this video has gone on longer than I wanted it to. But what I want to get at is I am really conflicted, and I do think it's fair when you're talking about something that's been around this long and has had this many different ups and downs and changes. And I have a few friends that I game with on the weekends, and one of them loved Star Wars even when he was younger growing up. He read all the books, all the comics even, and he was saddened to learn that everything was non-canonical. Like now a lot of that stuff is non-canon, and Disney was like, we're starting anew so that everybody's on the same footing, which in fairness is smart, but there was also the thing of what are they going to bring back from that works? And they brought Thrawn back, and that's worked so far. And there's probably other things too. Who knows? There might, what? I'll say this. I'll be happy if episode 9 starts out with a new original character that's a young member of the Hutt race, the Hutt species. And it's this young man who's being pushed into crime, but then he escapes and he's like, no, I can't do what my family's doing. They're terrible criminal. I don't want to be like a thug or a kingpin. And a young Hutt man happens to get embroiled in the affairs of Rey and Finn and Poe, and figuring out whatever the conflict is supposed to be. So that way we get at least some interesting, bold, original representation. At least I'll be seeing them making decisions like that. But right now I'm not seeing boldness when they bring back Billy D as Lando. Although, again, side note, I would rather have Billy D Lando than Donald Glover Lando. Sorry, I made my point. And I definitely am thinking it would be way bolder than hearing the Emperor's laughter at the end and thinking, oh no, is a Palpatine's ghost going to come back and do something to Rey? Oh, and then the latest trailer was it cuts to Rey wearing all black like a Sith, and she has like a double red lightsaber because all the Sith only apparently wore red lightsabers. Like, you don't think that's giving you away, man? Apparently everybody else dealt with non-red, and only the bad guys dealt with red. Because apparently red's a bad color. I don't know. Like, I feel like, isn't there a lot of red on flags around the world? Like, red's just a hue. It has it has positive and negatives to any. Like, I remember in middle school. No, yes, in middle school I got forced into taking an interior design course, and I stayed with it because I actually thought it was. After a while, I was like, this is actually kind of interesting. And I remember learning about how different colors have an effect on you when you're in a room, like a red room versus a dark, like a black room versus a blue room versus a yellow room versus a room with stripes versus a room that's white, featureless, versus a room with giant bay windows and a room with no windows at all. Like, different, I get it, different colors have different effects, but I do feel like it's weird that in Star Wars, they're still clinging on to shit like that, where it's like, if you have a red lightsaber, if you have a red lightsaber, by that, there's a tautology. Red lightsaber equals bad guy, equals Sith, equals evil Force user, equals you're going to be killed off, or you have to have a heroic redemption arc. It's one of the many things in Star Wars that it's like, I get it, but can we, if you're changing up everything else and you're willing to make the bold decision to change things up, can we make Star Wars go in the direction of, it doesn't have to be about humanity, because I feel like that's xenophobic and racist if they keep doing that. It's clear that they're breaking gender barriers and other, like, by our counts, racial / cultural / ethnic barriers. They're willing to play around with the old stuff, but also they can't escape it. And it's like, if they're willing to make some of these changes, there's plenty of other things you can do. Also, I'm sorry, can we please have one Star Wars movie, like, where it's nothing but aliens doing cool, fun stuff? And maybe one of them is a Force user. Not a Jedi or Sith, just has the Force and does different things. And then maybe, fine, give them a lightsaber, but don't make it red, blue, green, purple, yellow. I don't know, make it like what's a color that we haven't seen before? I don't know, like gray or something. And I'm assuming that in the lore that gray lightsabers are a thing. I think I remember looking that up years ago when we were going through a Star Wars kick. There's probably, but like, give him like a gray lightsaber that like maybe changes color even a little bit. Like, it's white, it turns white when you're holding it, and then black. Oh no, it turns like black when you're holding it, and then white. And if you're doing fast motions, or like if you block, it goes white to disorient your enemies. If you're at nighttime, it's black, so that way you can sneak up and stab people. If it's during the daytime, it's white, so it plays with the light. And then it's gray if it just by default. I don't know. And then maybe have like another character be like a hotshot gunslinger, not necessarily a space rogue. Oh, excuse me, gin time. Have like a hotshot gunslinger, space rogue, and then have another alien person be like, you know, I'm a talker, I'm a face, I'm a thinker, I help strategize, I'm a smooth talker, but I'm also sensual. And even, heck, let's even make it like they're a switch hitter. They go for anybody regardless of gender. So we have like a progressive take on, if we're going to sexualize this particular alien, it can go straight, gay, bi, Q, whatever. Like, it doesn't really matter. T. The point is, let's have a Star Wars where they go, all right, let's actually play around with just what the Star Wars fans and even the average movie-going fans would be willing to accept, because I kind of feel like they would be willing to accept that now. You're always going to, and I'll say in hindsight, because in case Disney or executives or somebody happens to catch this stupid video, which I doubt, I'd bet dollars to donuts this isn't going to get around to them ever. But if you are one of those people, you're always going to have a vocal outcry of, you're always going to have a vocal minority of haters, and you can never listen to them. When they showed like a white storm, when they showed a Finn, you know, as a black stormtrooper, so many white racist douchebags came out of nowhere and said, there can't be black stormtroopers. How dare they? They're trying to take away our heritage or some crap. The fact that Rey is the main character is like, oh, we have a woman in charge? That's just feminist propaganda. Like, you're always going to have a minority of haters. You have to not even acknowledge them and just move on. That's how you win at the end of the day. That's how you move forward. You don't listen to like your racist grandparents at the end of the day. You acknowledge that they were humans, that they did things. They probably, like, without them, your parents wouldn't be here and you wouldn't be here. And they probably did teach you some stuff, like, they probably taught you one in the hand's worth two in the bush, and it's like, you know what, that's true. That's a good phrase. But don't listen to you. What you do is when your grandparents are starting to be offensive, you acknowledge that, and then you move on, and you don't even acknowledge them, and you go, sorry, they're wrong. And Disney, any major studio, not even Disney, Warner Brothers, whoever's out there, there's always going to be a minority of haters. Don't ever acknowledge them. Don't feed the troll. Don't put slop in the pig's den. You just ignore them, let them die out, let their silence go nowhere. And don't worry about those douchebags who are going to shoot up a movie theater at the end of the day. Because you can't plan on those people doing that. I guarantee you that Country Fest, was it last year? Or, no, it was earlier this year. That one random, that fucker in Vegas who, like, he was in his hotel room and he shot at, like, a Country Fest and, like, wounded and killed a lot of people with his assault rifles and his hunting rifles and his sniper rifles. You can't bank on those people. And honestly, those extreme things don't happen very often, thank God. I know people will immediately pull up, like, pro gun control quotes and say, like, in this year, the rise of... Anyway, look, I'm getting off topic here. God damn it. I'm getting off topic. This is what I do. Call me Mr. Tangent, because I do nothing but tangents all fucking day. This is what my brain does. I need to take crazy pills. Anyway, so, in recap, I'm probably going to go see episode 9. I don't want to, but I will. I'm going to try to have a good time. I'm going to keep my bar low. I'm not going to go and see Solo unless I'm literally high and have nothing else to do in my own home. Or if I'm stuck somewhere and I'm like, this is all I've got that I haven't seen, I'll watch Solo. And I don't like the new Star Wars, but I like the stuff that they're experimenting with, like the Mandalorian and Rebels is great. Anyway, I don't want to repeat myself. I think I'm saying the same thing. I just wanted something to talk about, to put videos back on YouTube. I was trying to put funny little skits back together by myself, and that didn't really work, and I kind of lost motivation. But I do realize that occasionally I rant about bullshit. So rather than ranting to myself while I'm playing a video game, or I'm alone in my bedroom, or rather than ranting like while I'm driving around or I'm stuck in traffic and I just have this thing where it's like, this has been bothering me lately, or like, what's going on with this trend lately? It's better that I just say, screw it, put it out on the internet and just and share it and see what people say. I don't care how many people are going to be like, yeah, well, you're a weird, picky Gaylord. Like, is that all you got? Screw you. I've had worse stuff said to me. I've gone through worse stuff. So anyway, I hope people get something out of this video. If you don't like it, whatever. If you do like it, whatever. It's just, we all need to vent and we all need to put this stuff out there sometimes. And you know what I would love is to leave off asking you guys questions, because I think that would include you more. What do you like about Star Wars? What do you not like about Star Wars? What was your favorite moment in any of the trilogies? And I'll ask the question, are you excited for episode 9? And what did you think about Solo? What did you think about any of the movies that have popped out, including the show The Mandalorian? How do you feel about Star Wars as a franchise? And what would you recommend to Disney or the people in charge? And I guess lastly, I'm going to make the controversial decision to say, you know what, George Lucas, this thing got away from you, and I totally understand why you sold it. And I want to thank you for the original trilogy, because it seems like even if you hate the new Star Wars or you love the new Star Wars, we'll never be able to escape that really high bar that you set, and you and your friends and your fellow people involved in the production of it set with episodes 4, 5, and 6. So thank you, Mr. Lucas, and all those people. And also, I guess, thank the people that are still making Star Wars a thing, because there is still the child inside of me that would like Star Wars to continue to exist. I would like for it to go in different directions, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to be realistic, neither pessimistic or optimistic. I'm just going to be realistic and see what happens. Anyway, I'm going to stop now because it's already going on too long. For those of you who watched this all the way through, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Smash that like button and subscribe to my channel. And I don't have anything else going on. I'm not going to start a Patreon and stuff like that. I need to get a real job. Anyway, thank y'all for watching this. And may the Force be with you.